Hello and welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and
And we're talking, as I swallow, and we're talking about The Trial of the Chicago Seven, new movie out on Netflix that both Paul and I were hotly anticipating. And I think we talked about in a previous video. We've both got to see it. So now we get to talk to you fine people about it.
yeah, it's an interesting one because it came out on Friday last week, which
Yeah.
was the Thursday before I think we had said that we were very interested in it. That was our comeback special video, which is
Yeah, exactly. Well, we should put our cards on the table. Okay, full disclosure for everybody who's watching. Number one, there will be light spoilers or heavy spoilers, depending on how you feel about spoilers. But let's forget that. Most importantly, we have a bias. I know Paul quite a while now, and I know he's an Aaron Sorkin fan. Aaron Sorkin writes things, we tend to watch them and like them. My bias probably goes even a little further in that this is the type of movie that's made for me. I have a type. Everybody has a type, they just don't realize it. I have a type. I like Spotlight. I like, The Big Short. I like movies with large ensemble casts, snappy writing, this sort of thing. So I am predisposed to like it. Paul, I'm assuming you're most of the way there too. You might be able to be a little bit more impartial than me, just a little
um,
though.
I think so. I like these films. I like Moneyball and Big Short and the Chicago Seven and everything like that. But with Aaron Sorkin stuff, I'm probably more on his TV side.
Okay.
West Wing and which is the Newsroom especially.
Yeah,
So,
got to be
but
honest with you. If the dude wrote a Christmas card, I'd read it at this stage. His writing is usually magnetic.
yeah, he
I
is.
think
He's
it's
a
it's fair to say that's what he's best known for. But we should get it out of the way that he also directed this, which is his second feature. I think he did Molly's Game. I don't know if he did anything else. So I
yeah. I'm
think
not.
this is his second feature.
Yeah, I think he may. Yeah, as in feature. Yeah, I think it's his second feature. But yeah, he helped Newsroom and Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip and everything like West Wing. It's like
Yeah,
fantastic.
and I can
So
recommend all three of those. I think we can both. I don't know how many times you've watched The West Wing the whole way through, but I did my whole watch through about 2 years ago to make sure I didn't miss a second. And there's a lot of episodes of The West Wing.
I
His writing for the seasons he was writing on it. Oh,
mm, I always
so
stop.
sweet.
I think I always stop at the um like I missed the last two seasons. I always skip the last two seasons. Um,
They aren't as good, to be fair. Still, though, if you're out there and you're thinking of watching The West Wing, it's well worth it.
mhm. So,
So, hit us, Paul. Synopsis.
um,
Which one of us is doing it?
rock paper scissors on screen.
Okay,
Um,
you.
um, okay. Which is yeah. This is a little bit of a difficult kind of one to kind of go through, but the story is about essentially eight and so called the Chicago Seven, but it was technically eight people on trial. It is essentially the leaders of kind of I guess um, liberal
Well,
and social justice. Sorry,
yeah. Can I kick you back to one thing?
yeah, go
It's
for it.
this all centers around a real life event, which is
Hmm.
the riots in Chicago around the time of it's 1968. There's a Democratic National Convention going on that's about to nominate somebody who's still pro-war, and the Vietnam War is raging. Richard Nixon ends up being the president after this, so it was Lyndon B. Johnson who was on the way out, and these people wanted to protest the nomination of a pro-war Democratic candidate. So these are the kind of the titular seven, or as Paul says, and we'll get onto it in a while, I guess, that there's actually eight. Um, but it's about those people being put on trial, maybe not for the best reasons in the world. After riots do happen, but they're being put on trial for um, all sorts of convoluted reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Specifically, which is the main thing that they're being called up on is that the leaders of these kind of fringe kind of groups, which has incited the riots. So that's kind of where we're key to it. It's an interesting, yeah, it's an because it's an interesting time, and it's also because yeah, the Vietnam War is going on and stuff, and it is the the only time that they could possibly create some kind of difference with the war effort and everything by having a Democrat who doesn't um, isn't pro
Yeah.
war. So that's an interesting kind of thing. It's also
And
a very
oh, so go. Sorry, go for it. Yeah.
it's an interesting comparison to a lot of stuff that's going on currently, which makes it interesting of the release time. You know,
Funny, I was just about to say, and we're the only people in the internet who haven't started off by saying it's strange how much it parallels things going on today. We made it. We made it a few minutes in, but it is strange. Straight. Having said that, though, if you weren't alive in 1968, which I know a lot of you weren't, let's cast our mind back to what the Vietnam War actually really meant and was for the people of America at the time, because the war had raged on before America got involved. But JFK, John F. Kennedy, famous for many, many things, but also very famous for being assassinated. Martin Luther King, also around this time, and was assassinated. There was a real anti war push. But one of the reasons there was an anti war push and so many people were against the Vietnam War wasn't just because of strongly held belief that, America shouldn't have been involved in Vietnam, which was one side of the argument. It's because it was one of the few times in history when there's been a draft, conscription, where people are not voluntarily volunteered to join the war effort. So that caused a lot of tensions, and it's hard for us to imagine what that's like right now. But the late '60s in America, there had been peace and love, and there was hippies and all of those good things, and some great, great music, and some really, really great cars. Um, but it's very, very hard to kind of draw parallels, even from what's going on right now, to how people were feeling about war at the time, and war in particular, because public assembly, free speech, the right to protest, those things parallel massively with today.
hmm
But one thing that is very much out of whack, and I don't think can be lost, is that the Vietnam War was very much a war that had a human toll.
yeah, like it is a big element to this because yeah, as you said, it's the first time, it's the second time in American history for an international war, I guess would be the best way to put it. The only two times that they've ever had a draft is that World War Two and which was
In
in
Vietnam.
yeah, which is big things. Um, on top of that, it was also believed that this was a poor person war. You know, the fact that a large percentage, like pretty much 100% of the draftees were all like from lower classes or from the lower class, and it was seen as a kind of a way of getting rid of kind of a level of class as well, in certain respects. But yeah,
It was
it's
definitely a messed up time, and that's why the only reason I kind of called out that difference is for and everything that you hear, anything I've heard in passing about this movie, uh, outside of positive or negative, is and man, so much of it is relevant today, and that is very very true. But as we talk through it and as we talk about it, anybody who hasn't seen it will be like, yeah, but there's no war today. Well, you're going to find that an awful lot of the other themes will resonate with what's going on, because this goes very quickly past, because it's a trial movie. It's about the trial of the people who were leaders of the anti-war movement, or anti-war demonstrations, but the trial is really about them being, can I say the word, set up, or at least selectively chosen to represent the bad face of the anti-war movement, who that the establishment at the time really wanted to punish.
yeah, like that's I don't like they are the leaders of those kind of those groups. So yeah, it is that they went for the leaders to kind of, I guess, cut the head off the snake and hopefully the body will die kind of thing. Especially with the way that they were going about it, which was essentially to try crush them as completely. Like this is the Nixon era where like if you're not with Nixon, even if you're American, you're against him. Like
You're
you're
against
an
them,
enemy pretty much. So like it's
and
a kind of
yeah,
it also is interesting because, as you said, it is the start of the Nixon run, and this is one of the first things that not that he did, but that can be proven. But his institutes, or the institutes of which he established, start to kind of push down on people, and it's just
yeah.
it's just an interesting kind of like way that his administration went.
And
So
I think we've got to move on to the movie. And as we do move on to the movie, because there's a little bit about the real world story, and the movie is obviously based around that. The movie itself has a little bit of an interesting history that I'm just going to throw in real quick. This is a Netflix movie, except it's not. Netflix bought it from Paramount for, I know I read this, and I think it was 56 million. I hope I got my numbers right. It was either 56 or 65. I've a bit of a habit of swapping things right in my head. 56 million, I'm pretty sure. And I think it was money well spent, as you will see in the rest of this episode. But the reason they were able to buy it, obviously, is because of COVID and it's not coming out in the cinema. But also the reason they were able to buy it is because it finally got made. This movie's been in planning for a very long time. And when I say very long time, I mean, 12, 13 years. Aaron Sorkin was originally going to write it, yes, but it was Steven Spielberg who was going to originally direct it, not Aaron Sorkin. So it's had a not a tough run, but it's had a long gestation period.
mhm.
And I'm kind of glad because I can't imagine the cast they would have had 13 years ago versus the cast they have today. So I think sometimes, things just line up. I think the stars lined up a little bit for this one.
Yeah, that would be an interesting kind of subject to take on. Would it like to cast this back in time?
Mm.
So like
Well,
take
if
it
there's
from
time at the end of the video, we might have a go at that for fun.
like 2010, around the 2010 era, see who kind of who could play each of the characters. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like
So
it's
hit me with what you think of the movie though. So like let's get into the movie for the folks at home. I'm gonna straight away just go, everybody knows we think this is great because Aaron Sorkin wrote it. So we can probably start there and say, yes, the writing for me is one of the stars of the show. I think it's incredibly well written. And because of that, because he's writer and director, I thought it was really well paced. And it's not a pace that everybody will enjoy, but I actually think from a storytelling point of view, it was.
which is interesting because that's the thing that I have a problem with.
And I kind of knew. So I did guess right.
Yeah,
Paul told me he had a problem, but wouldn't tell me what it was. We were like, let's find out on air. And I was like, I'll bet you it's one of the things that I liked about it.
yeah, like the okay. So I overly like the film. The film is a very good film. As you said, Aaron Sorkin kind of writing and directing was a fantastic marriage in the kind of like source material to the which gets to the screen and everything because his vision never got. It feels like his vision never got lost. He never had to compromise for anything or any of that. On top of that, I feel like the casting probably was done really well with as in he wrote people with people in mind kind of thing. So each of the cast fit really really well, which we'll get into later because the cast is quite an integral part to this whole thing. Overall, like the production value was really really nice. It's like it's fantastic, well done. The sets and period pieces and stuff like that all feel really kind of like amazing. The other part that I really liked with it is the in cuts of role from the time.
Yeah.
So that's another.
That's on my list of highlights. I have my little post-it note here, and under highlights, one of the first things I've written is setting the stage, which is, and I have montage at the opener of the movie. They use actual footage, and I think that was not only genius in retrospect but appropriate in retrospect. It really did set the tone of the movie correctly. Going, what you're about to see, as much as there will be some dramatization, this is all based on real people and real people's lives and real events that weirdly you've forgotten. Even if you ever did know, you've probably forgotten. Because I can't honestly say, and as much of an American history fan as I am, I can't say that I had remembered all of this in detail. It was more of a, oh yeah. So yeah, I thought using actual real footage and cutting in bits of Walter Cronkite and the like, bit of news footage was just perfect.
Well, opening up even with the drafts was a fantastic way of kind of giving you the tone of what's going on currently in the period of time. This
Yeah,
is like, and then because that's so overbearing and everything to know that essentially the arbitrary way in which they pick people as well is such a big piece as well. But then including kind of like a person opening the letterbox and getting the letter and stuff like that is also fantastic. But it's later on as well the footage from like the parks and stuff like that, which is interesting. It's a nice tonal piece to kind of it grinds you back into the thing. But yeah, the pacing I had an issue with in places. I felt like it rushed along and then stopped and rushed along and stopped kind of thing, and like it was just it was just annoying to me in slight pieces because like I wanted to know where the pacing seemed quick. I wanted it more time, and where the pacing was slow, I was just like, you could probably cut off a couple of seconds off this, kind of thing. So that's my problem with the pieces. Certain parts of the courtroom pacing was probably where I was mostly kind of like, you could probably cut off like a
Why are
second.
they leaving so much breathing room there, sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah, like and then having so little time and possibly the kind of like fringe stuff which helps build more of the story. And like I understand that the courtroom stuff is all transcripts. So like it a lot of it is all like is a lot of it is all real kind of things that were said put together kind of as for a movie. So like the pacing might be a little bit different there, whereas the rest of the stuff was like not recorded but talked about in interviews and researched and everything like that. So they probably quickened it up a little bit more because they didn't have as much kind of like I guess source material to it. But it like it overly all the pacing was the only thing that I really had a problem with. And when I say had a problem, it was just like this could be done a little bit different, and I'd still love the film.
I hear you. I hear you. And the reason I'm smiling so much is, and I did say this to Paul before we start, I said, he's like, what do you think of the movie? And I was like, I loved it. I hope you hate it because I want us to disagree on something tonight. And it's great because that is, and I'll give you my highlights really quickly and you'll see why it's quite funny. So setting the stage at how serious things were, the montage, and I have my note birthday, as in how serious the draft is. that that whole section happened very very quickly and established things very short sharp shock, but really grabbed the attention, which is a great thing for an opener. And then I have Sorkin's speed. Sorkin's speed, here you go, of setting up the various players and showing their differences. He didn't hang around setting up who's who, where's where, what's going on, because he couldn't explain all of history, but he also couldn't spend a lot of time fleshing out the characters at the start. So anytime he's fleshing out their background or who they are, I thought it was great. He moved so quickly to go, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. Come with me, I'll show you the rest later. And I kind of that worked for me. Um, and then it's kind of it's funny because when you say it slowed down, that's where I think it took its cadence well. That's why I think the pacing was so good for me. It was like, here's information to get to know some of these people, but this story is about why they went through what they went through in the court, and that's why it slows down around for me. If you know what I mean, this is how I felt about it. I was really glad that it lingered in places where it did, because there were usually the emotional beats of, yeah, I'm not just telling you about history. I'm pointing out why this story is important. I don't think he misses at any point a chance to go, whether you're pro establishment or anti establishment, there's a human cost behind all this, not just in the courtroom, but on the killing fields. And those were the slowed down moments, particularly, and we haven't mentioned it yet. There's a heavy, heavy part to play, or plot part for this, with how racist things were, the race issues that were happening, and particularly with one of the defendants. And there are moments where that sped up and then slowed down again. And I enjoyed that because I guess I enjoyed the wave nature of, we're moving the story along, but now we're getting to a part where I want you to feel this with me. Now we're moving the story along. We've got a lot to do. But again, you know yourself, the same as you. If it had changed slightly, it wouldn't have ruined the film for me. It was just weird that it's one of the things I enjoyed. And I'm really, really glad we finally picked something that your negative was my positive. Um,
Yeah, like like I'll agree with you that the opening and the getting to the characters introductions was very good. It was very neat and stuff, and it did give you the way that I thought about that with the pacing was the fact that he wasn't in any way going, I'm not doing this down.
yeah,
You're getting it like literally a subtitle underneath each person gives you essentially the gist that these people are and these are people who are from different factions of the kind of Democratic Party, or the maybe the far left kind of
Yeah.
groups. And then but it's it's pacing around kind of the middle area where they were recalling some of the events that were going on, that were rising up to the reason that they were there, that they kind of felt like they sped through. Like any time that they were talking about stuff in the park and stuff like that, the events that were going on, like some of them were important and some of them not, but like they took their time with certain ones and then sped them up a lot more. And it was that kind of disjointing kind of like accounts of like because it's evident they're portraying those sequences as evidence within the court case, and like
Yeah.
so you get like a part where it's very quickly done and it's very neatly done, and then you'll go back to the court case and it'll be either very slow, which is not very slow. That's like the pacing will be a little bit slower than the piece you just saw, and it'll go back again, but then the pacing will be really quickly, and it'll go back to the court case, and then it'll be fast as well. So around the court
And
case and stuff, it felt like it's
I am, without changing anything, I'm going to send you my notes when this episode's over because you're going to laugh your head off. What I haven't, because I obviously had to skip some highlights there because we haven't talked about bits of it yet, like the gagging, etc., which we'll get to. But my last thing was the back and forth style worked for me. Like I have literally, this is great. We are finally coming at something we both really like from different angles,
Mhm.
and I think that says a lot for the strength of the movie and also the strength of the underlying writing based on the topic. Again, I think this movie works for its writing, and I think you nailed it by going. It it is it's well shot. It looks great, but you're not going to go. Cinematography is what does this. The directing part, it's because he's directing based on writing that he knows, and I think you described that really well. And I think the third leg to that maybe is something that you touched on, that he also had these characters in his head. So if he was part of casting, that would make sense. But he was definitely part of directing their performances. And I think that combination, having the guy that wrote it, had it in his mind, directing it, then eliciting just incredible performances from, like, I'm not going to be able to pick somebody who didn't do a good job in the cast. Like, I'll be able to tell you things I like about various ones, but there's no bottom end for me here. It's all, green line. It's all line and above. It's all good. No red, no negative.
Yeah, like I think my list of kind of how the performances was probably their how much screen time they probably got, with is probably how I probably graded people more. But it's as in it's not like they did a bad job. It was just that they didn't have much to do on screen when they were on screen, or that they
Understood.
were kind of thing like JC McKenzie. He's the attorney general, isn't he, or
He's well,
deputy?
no, he's the prosecutor's. He's the prosecutor's boss essentially. So
Yeah.
he's, for anybody who has seen this, Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a great job again playing what is a fairly stunted role because he doesn't have as much to maybe contribute at times, but just because it's not a giant role, it's still a very important one. And Jogo, Mr. Gordon Levitt does a great job, but it's his boss is that JC guy that we both
Yeah.
commented on. We see everywhere. He's
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
great agent.
He's in it. He's in a lot of stuff, and he only came onto our radar with October Faction.
Mm,
So like that's because he plays one of the main characters. Great Halloween TV show, by the way, so on
mm,
Netflix as well. But yeah,
yeah,
like that's as I said, he doesn't really have a lot. He's there, but he doesn't have a lot
no,
to say. He's a I wouldn't even call him a secondary character. He is a third character.
yeah,
And as I said, his performance is good. He's a silent. He's got the look of a G man as well. Like he
yeah.
plays his character even though he doesn't have many lines, like really well, and like but he doesn't have a lot of screen time, and that was kind of how I was just like graded my group. Like
Yeah.
the main like
Let's
cast,
let's
which
do the
was
performances. So let's get into it. I'll scroll down on my notes.
yeah, like which was so like Eddie Redmayne is just fantastic as which was as Tom Hayden, who's just
How
how
did you feel about the accent? Because I
so
think he did a pretty good job, but I would like to ask somebody from that region of America.
see this is the thing is he has like a speech pattern to him, and like as far as I found out that when you change your accent, you generally change your speech pattern as well to kind of feed the kind of colloquialisms and mannerisms and stuff like that access allows. He didn't.
Hmm.
His speech pattern was very similar still to Eddie
Who's Eddie
Redmayne.
Redmayne?
Yeah. So he's still very good, and he plays Tom Hayden really really well, which goes as kind of like the kind of middleman kind of thing, as in like he wants change. He wants to like democratic change. He's a extreme. A liberal as well. Like very much in the left field, but understands that like he's more understanding about how the system works than probably.
He's a straight laced liberal, I guess is the way I kind of put him in my head. He's the straight laced liberal. He's the working liberal. You know, he's the still respects the establishment but wants to change it liberal.
Yeah, like it's in yeah, he's that guy who says I want to change it within the system kind of thing. Whereas the majority of the other people, the other like defendants are very much like no, this is the system has to change completely. Like
Yeah.
some of them are more extreme than the other, but like they're wavering from to kind of center left to far left, which
Well,
is great.
Eddie Redmayne did a great job. He didn't even make my list because I, like you say, you can't pick everybody. So I called out a few things, and Eddie Redmayne didn't make it, and it wasn't because of the accent. I think he'll be pushed possibly as like the lead character or the lead role, and I don't think his was necessarily the lead role in the movie. It's up there, but I would love somebody to put a stopwatch on it. I don't even know if he got enough uh, proportionally screen time to be called the lead role. I think he did a very good job. He was definitely one of the cornerstones to telling the story because that's what that character was. He was pivotal to it all. Um, but yeah, his performance I thought was very good, but it's not one that peeled my hair back. You know?
Yeah, I get you. Like, I would say that he's no. If I was to pick a singular character who was the main character, I would say that it was the lawyer.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne probably got the second most screen time to him, and it makes
Yeah,
sense because the lawyer kind of brings it all together. The only reason I bring Eddie Redmayne up is just because when he's on screen and stuff, it's very noticeable that he's on screen.
yeah.
Um, I have to say, probably one of my favorites is probably Cohen. Um,
Sacha Baron Cohen's. Yeah, again, I gotta ask. I would love if there's anybody from these particular areas in America that want to tell us how they did, because Eddie Redmayne, Paul nailed it. He changed his accent, but he was still Eddie Redmayne voice wise, speech pattern wise. Sacha Baron Cohen. I only have one. Actually, no, I have two negatives written down because I had to write down a negative, and one is a question mark with Sacha Baron Cohen's accent question mark because I could
yeah,
still hear a lot of the UK and Sacha Baron Cohen, but that's because we've known him for 20 years. So
yeah.
maybe I'm oversensitive.
No, I think his like because he plays Abby Hoffman, like
Yes.
that's so one of the leaders of the Yippie which is group. So kind of very high thinking, very kind of like hippie-ish kind of as the group suggests. His accent's like because where is he from? Where is like
I'm not too, I guess, I don't know
because
if
he
it's
sounds
Connecticut or somewhere, but
because he
is he
sounds
Californian?
yeah. See, he sounds like he's like Irish Boston
Exactly,
to
but done with a
to
Californian groove.
yeah to Portland to like there's several cities that I could take it from which
Both coasts
I
and a bit of the middle. Yeah.
see I could never I don't know how Abby Hoffman ever spoke of it. I haven't heard him speak or anything like that, but I don't think there's anyone on the planet that has like because it sounds like a fake accent, but his acting is so
Oh,
good other than that it's one of those
shoots
things that
fired.
you yeah like you kind of go that's a weird accent and like literally first couple of seconds you hear him talk about it and then
Yeah.
you just get so used to it that it's no longer an issue you know Like,
Yeah, no,
but he,
I couldn't agree more. I think he did a great job, and he's the by virtue of his character and by virtue of the yippee hippie thing, he is the really intelligent stoner, free love guy who has, let's face it, the best lines. If you read the script, you'd be like, I want to be the one to get to say those lines. They're the funny lines. And he's got a comedy background. He knows how to deliver that. But I think he delivered all of them not as a comedian. He delivered them all as an actor. Like there was no sense of I can land this joke. It was I can deliver this dialogue, and this guy was genuinely funny because of his point of view and his bravery and his two fingers to everything.
yeah, like that's a really well put way. Like he wasn't delivering jokes; he was delivering lines as like a person, like retorts of a person who is just naturally charismatic and funny and intelligent. You know,
Yeah.
which is better than a character who's just funny. So like, so that's just yeah, that's really well put.
Well,
Um,
Oscar nomination. What do you think? Because
so
I'm thinking he may well surprise people and get an Oscar nod, and he'll be called a supporting character. That's why.
yeah, I think he'll get a support. I say he'll get a nomination for supporting role.
Yeah.
Like easily.
And it's
Um,
practically a lead role, which is, and I'm not saying it's unfair to, it's just the nature of the movie. But when you consider supporting character, like he could easily be called a lead character along with about six other people in this movie. So he's got that going for him as well in the supporting actor nomination thing. It's like, well, God, it's practically a lead role, but we can give him the supporting nod.
yeah, like I would say, yeah. See, that's the thing because I would say that there's probably like like four main characters, and three of them, like four of them being on, yeah, four of them pretty much being on their side of the thing of the course room,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So like, because it's very important that each of those stories got told and how they
Well,
get told.
can I throw my favorite one out, or the one that stood out to me, because I don't think it's going to necessarily be one that you've picked or a lot of people are going to pick. I think Frank Langella, or Langella, depending on where you live in the world as to how you say it. He played the judge. He's been a fantastic actor. He'll always be a fantastic actor. But I'm so glad that he got the opportunity to do this role, because he owned the evil of a person at that time who didn't realize they were doing evil. He he really didn't hold back on being, just portraying. The words are on the page, but I thought his performance was one of those. He embodied that, with no ego, no nothing. That sort of, this is my courtroom pride, of the stubborn judge, the I don't really realize how racist I'm being at any given time. He plays evil without being dark, and I thought it's just one of the great performances in the movie. And when I watch it again, which I will be doing relatively soon, I'm sure that's the one that I'm going to revel in. That, and as you called out, Mark Rylance as the defense attorney. They're the two standouts for me. But what did you think of the judge's performance? Because I thought he just nailed it.
Without the judge, this isn't an Oscar film. Like it's not
Gotcha.
like, as
Well
in
put.
like, because like it's the importance of that judge being there is the fact is that he's not he's not like in the pocket of the establishment. He is the establishment. Like
Yeah.
he's and especially at this time, like the prosecution are still like they're still human would be one of the best ways to describe it. Like
Yeah.
Joseph Wishus is still Levis is still kind of like human, whereas that character is like everything that is wrong with the current state of the institute that Nixon kind of brought on, and the war and stuff like that. He is like he's a teacher. The best way to describe it would be he is a teacher who is fed up with his class and doesn't have time for anything that they have to say, and he's already made his mind up for everything, and like
Yeah.
that's the worst point that he has. Like he's and it only comes clearer and clearer for I'm gonna get his wrong. I'm gonna get his name wrong. Which goes, sorry, I have it written down over here. He's Yoya.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Abdul Mateen,
Yeah,
I believe is how it's said. I'm terrible at pronunciation too.
yeah. He's which goes Black Manta from which goes he's Black Manta from Aquaman. He's the main bad guy.
Aquaman, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. Which goes very good actor. He's the head of the Black Panther
yeah,
which goes group. Which goes, he is a fantastic. He's a fantastic character. He's like he plays his kind of like his role really well. Of kind of like he's not represented like it's obviously that he's there, but no one gives it like not sorry not no one gives a shit, but no one who matters gives a shit.
yeah.
Kind
The
of thing.
established institution has, and let's we're bound to start breaking down plot points. We can jump back to actors as we go, but that plot point that there is the Chicago Seven, and he's the eighth. So there's an eighth defendant, and it's Bobby Seale. It's played by Yahya Abdul Mateen. I'm only ever going to say that one more time because I'm sure it was wrong. Apologies for my pronunciation out there. The actor plays it well, but that character being one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers, and obviously, history has shown, obviously was brought in to make everything look bigger and scarier and nastier. And it was a real extension of this is how we make people look violent and militant. The Black Panthers represented that at the time to an older white establishment, particularly represented here by the judge. And I think there are many, many strong scenes in this movie, but the idea that he is not being represented properly, he doesn't have representation, and the court does not care. The court itself does not care. The judge, the institution, they do not care. They're moving along with just taking this person's rights away, and obviously feeling fine with it because he's a black man. That was that gripped me very, very hard at the start of the court case.
Yeah, because like that was the interesting. It was an interesting point because I wanted to look up just a little bit of the kind of fringe information that was around this because I didn't want to look at the court case or anything while watching the movie. But it was interesting to find that there was an eighth person and solely put in there, as you said, for kind of like for visuals, in the sense that he's the head of the Black Panther organization, which was completely vilified. Like they're not the cleanest group ever, but they were on the right side in the sense of trying to get civil rights and everything. So like, but they were seen as a violent group. So putting them in with the rest of the kind of the seven is the perfect PR stunt in kind of scaring the jury as well into it.
Yeah.
And like,
Particularly when it's pretty factually accurate to say that he had nothing to do with the riots. So
yeah,
just whatever anybody thinks of the Black Panthers, yay or nay, this is one of those they picked somebody and put them on trial that should never have been there. Which, as the movie goes on, it becomes more and more apparent that nobody cares that that's the case. Up to that incredible gagging scene where he is saying his piece because he cannot hold his tongue anymore, and it's his speech is powerful, but my God, when they take him away, and spoilers, everybody, they take him away and bind and gag him and bring him back into the courtroom. It's There's one of those times when I'm glad the pacing was the way it was, because that was one of those ones where I felt uncomfortable, I felt disgusted and sickened, but it went on longer than it needed to from a cinematic point of view, and I think it was right that it did, because
see,
I felt like, yeah, we should sit in this dirt for a minute and see what we're actually all about as people.
that's the scene that I had no problem with it because it
Oh,
is such an important scene because like first of all when you're introduced to his character or to the person he portrays, they state the fact that he's only going to be in Chicago for 4 hours. He's only there for 4 hours, and then later on he states it again that he was only there for 4 hours. You know, and this protest was going on for days. Like so, like him being there for 4 hours, he made a speech and then he left. That was literally like, and
yeah,
it's just because the visuals of having him there as the leader of the Black Panther makes this a little bit more legitimate and kind of accessing violence and stuff. Because the horrible thing is that they couldn't fully point to the other seven but they could point to him. And as you said, the scene where it's a scene where like he constantly goes on about how he's not being represented. His like right as an American citizen of fair representation in a courtroom is being denied completely. And then to have the like to have essentially his representation then being removed from him completely
Yeah.
by being attacked breaks him down completely, and it is an epic speech, but it's the part that really kind of stuck out to me, the part that kind of I guess killed the humanity in me a little bit, I guess, and stabbed the humanity in me a little bit really badly, was the way that the judge told the bailiffs to remove him from, like, as in he does the outburst, and it's just like, take him, bailiffs, take him into a room and deal with him the way he should be dealt with. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and then it has the this is where your pacing really well. It has the court scene with Emerald waiting for what's going on, and then it moves to the room that's going on, and he's being beaten, um like restrained, and then so yeah,
Yeah.
he's been beaten, then it switches back to the courtroom, then him being restrained, and then the gag, and him being wheeled in, and just the shock of it all. Like it's
Like,
just one of those things that you're just like, it kills you inside as a I guess human being, that someone else, especially a judge, a person who's supposed to uphold the law, was so
yeah.
nonchalant about having him beaten and gagged and stuff like that in the courtroom, and then wheeled as some kind of monster
And
into
the
back in.
the the extension of that monstrosity is to, the judge represents so much. And actually, I wouldn't mind even talking about that for a second in one moment. But the jury is supposed to represent your peers, and the amount with which the judge is portrayed as essentially overriding proceedings with his own thoughts and feelings and what he thought is appropriate or not appropriate. We'll talk about the voir dire and not allowing another testimony in later, but around that one individual, it really is clear this is a person who not only is against these hippies and thinks, why, this is not a future that I want to see for America. I want things to go back to the way they were in the 40s and 50s. But the extra evil sauce that he pours on for that one defendant is, you can feel it. You can feel it, and you can feel it in the performance. That's why I say, Frank Langella did his star of the show for me, because he carried the burden of being, what do we always say, the villain.
Mm.
Best, if you don't have a good villain, you don't have a good movie. He is the villain. They don't make the cops the villains, in a serious one block kind of thing. That this isn't, people versus the police. This isn't just people versus the government. This is people versus an establishment that's rotten in so many ways and personified by the judge.
Yeah, like that's the thing, and as you said, it's there's no way that this film actually, another Oscar nomination, I think, possibly for him as a supporting
I hope
character.
so. I really
You know,
hope so.
because like
I
as you said,
really, really hope so.
you can't have, because the prosecution, like right after that, are shown as good as still, one of the prosecutors are shown as a good person still by essentially having his specific case then thrown out, because like so and it shows that the judge is the only one that is literally being portrayed as the establishment. So the non-caring system of these people who are just outside the frame, like just outside the normal society of people that they want, kind of thing. So like, and then as you said, the judge is meant to be completely impartial. That they're meant to try and find all the facts. They're meant to display the facts as much as possible to the jury, but this guy had already made his mind up and wanted the court to go that way completely.
Yeah.
Um, my suggestion is that we go to the chat real quick
I was
before
just
we
thinking
go
that
on.
too. Good man. Yeah, let's jump in. We've got one from Nora saying the guys wearing the cop uniforms under the robes was a true story.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had done a small amount of wiki afterwards just to check a few things to see if the robes gag was real. So for anybody who hasn't seen the movie yet, spoiler, but you're watching this, so you've already had quite a bit of it explained. There is a moment where the two the two hippies, show up in robes, essentially in judges' robes, and it's a great moment. You can go
yeah.
for the next one, Paul.
Which is I think Sorkin likes to write fast and slower pace into his scripts. It was always similar in The West Wing and The Newsroom. Yeah, it's he's also he unlike the West, like so Chicago 7's a little bit different in the sense that he is Aaron Sorkin writes the walk and talk like no other person, like where he's able to see the transitions between the scenes where most of the talking gets done, because that's where he think in government, in TV shows, and like because
Yeah.
Studio 60 newsroom, and the West Wing, it's like in the corridors is where most of the stuff actually gets talked to. So he does that really well. But because the court case is done, there's no real walking and talking kind of thing. That's where it's. I think if there was more of that in between the scenes and stuff like that, we're not even like within the scenes. I think the pacing would be a lot more to me as Aaron Sorkin kind of thing
I I
than
hear
what
you.
was, because it's very, because the courtroom, although is very intellectually quick, because it's very talk mostly based on the dialogue and everything. There's no real actions to it, whereas Aaron Sorkin's kind of writing kind of flows from the physically fast with the talking to the suddenly not physically fast to the fast talking, like as in
Yeah.
I guess there's two pacing kind of things there, whereas that's my problem, as in it was a little bit from the physical and talking kind of paces, it seemed a little bit different, and
Oh,
which felt,
I hear
that's
you,
where I
and
was coming
again,
from.
that's the great thing about kind of different feelings being elicited by different moves in cinema. That's why cinema is magical. I think it's a good point though that Nora makes about Sorkin's writing, and I think you've kind of articulated there pretty well too. The I want to call this comment out because Kyler 114. I don't know if we've had you before. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you very much. Um, I think it's between Yaya and Mark Rylance. That will probably be on who the lead or best actor maybe now might go to. And Yaya we've covered as the uh, Black Panther defendant. Let's call him for now.
Bobby Seeley,
Um, Bobby Seale, yeah.
yeah.
Mark Rylance plays the defense attorney.
Mm.
We touched on that a little while ago. I think we should give him his play because he is my bet. If I'm putting down Oscars, I'm saying that Frank Langella is going to get the Best Supporting Oscar and Sacha Baron Cohen will be nominated. I think Mark Rylance, if I was choosing, I would put him forward as your lead actor. And if he's not, and he's in as supporting actor, he's probably going to get an Oscar nomination too.
Yeah,
He
like I
plays
think
it with a depth of feeling.
it's incredible. He plays William
Kunstler,
Kunstler, yeah. Like
yeah.
so, a lot of bad names for me. I can't.
Yeah, Kunstler is a hard one when you see it written down, particularly too, because they
It
say it a
looks,
lot in the film, and it sounds like he's saying counselor. But when I saw it written down, I was like, "Oh, I'm glad I heard that one said before I ever had to pronounce it."
yeah,
Kunstler.
yeah. So yeah,
Mm,
it's close.
it
But yeah,
is.
I would say yeah, because his like Mark's portrayal of the defendant is great, because you can feel, you can tell that he's emotionally invested in the whole thing, as in like he might not be a believer in the causes in which all of the people betray, but the integrity of the courtroom is massive to him. It's one of the most probably important things to him, and you can tell from that, as in the sense that
Yeah,
he's fighting the good fight in a courtroom, where the courtroom is not the place that he's usually is. You know, like in as
yeah.
in it's not on his usual playing field of the courtroom.
I think
So
yeah, and I think you've nailed that. Like he's the reason he is the hero is because the judge is the villain, and they both represent the law. And one of them, the one that believes in the sanctity of the law most, is the hero in this case. It is the defense attorney. The sadness, not just that he expresses for bad decisions and things that are going against his client or things that are just a little bit unfair, but he gives it that extra bit, little bit of secret sauce to make you feel like that person who's given their life to the law, being a defense attorney, not a prosecutor, being a defense attorney for people like these, he feels justice being eroded. Now it's in written lines too. He does get to express that, but he carries such of that sense through all the scenes he's in. You get a real sense of something more important than the trial is what's going wrong for him. Justice is going wrong, and he's the hero because he loves justice.
Yeah, yeah, like that's the best way to. It's like it's the difference of the institute would probably be the institute, as in, or the establishment, as in the judge represents the establishment specifically going after the rights of freedom, of that kind of thing. Whereas, which goes Mark Rayler,
Rylance.
Rylance is the establishment that's compassionate, but it still works in the confinements of the law. As in, like, it's
Yeah.
compassionate as much as it's in compassionate as much as you can be, but it also understands that the law is the law, you know. And I think that Joseph Gordon-Levitt represents essentially that group of people who get swept up in the institution that they believe in that's doing wrong. You know, as in he's not a fully bad guy. He is the prosecution. He does his job. He follows the law, like, but you can tell in areas that he's also very much just like, this is also slightly wrong.
Yeah.
This is not like this is the sanctity of the courtroom, and justice is being slightly averted by the obvious and blatant, like, judgment calls on the judge. You know,
Yeah. The Joseph Gordon-Levitt's mastery in his performance, I think, was that getting across that he had no time, so to speak, for the actions or the beliefs of the defendants. That wasn't where he had an empathetic bone in his body for them. It was he's also part of this institution that he could see and feel and recognized wasn't being administered correctly. But also, he didn't think it was a good idea to go there first. He didn't want to be in that situation for both of those reasons. He knew that the law was being used incorrectly, to drag these people into this situation, and also because he didn't agree with their point of view, he knew it would play into their hands. So he's your prophetic character, kind of going, "This is how this is going to go down, everybody. I'm calling it at the start," and then he has to play through it. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt keeps getting called out by us lately for probably good reason. I think he did well. I don't think he'll get singled out, and I think it's probably right that he wouldn't be. But
no,
he definitely held up his side of the bargain.
no, he's yeah. I don't think he'll get an Oscar nomination from this.
Uh,
Not that
I
his,
don't
not
think
that
I don't think
his.
he deserves it. I don't think it's an Oscar performance. I think as part of this movie, it's a fantastic performance.
Yeah, like that's the thing. As in, if his part wasn't played well, then this wouldn't be as good, you know. But it's a piece to the puzzle rather than, a big important piece, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So, like, yeah, his portrayal of his character is really, really, or of his is the person he portrays is really well done. The courtroom pieces are really, really nice. It kind of the kind of smart young, kind of like hungry prosecutor to, which goes William, or not, yeah, is it William, um kind of like, I guess, veteran of the courtroom, kind of person who believes in it fully. And you can see that kind of like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is very much a believer but also hungry, and that's where the kind of conflict within him comes from, as in he
yeah.
wants to do good by the powers that be, but he also believes in the sanctity of of the courtroom and laws, that you can see it constantly bashing with him. So it's, as I said, it's important to have him in the thing as a kind of like, although he's trying to prosecute them, he's also that kind of like weird in the middle between, which is William and the judge.
Well, can I do my thing where I get all clairvoyant and I read your mind? There's something that if I don't bring it up, you're going to bring it up. So I'm getting in there first. And that is somebody who is a member of this cast, but is not a member of the court, is not a member of the 7 or 8 defendants, um, and is unbelievably integral for me to some of the genius of the writing and just how the movie was made. It is the star super sub performance of one Michael Keaton. somebody everybody knows I'm infatuated with. So my bias again is showing. So Paul, back me up that Michael Keaton's from the second Michael Keaton shows up, Keaton shows up playing the character he's playing. He owns the screen and owns the character.
Yeah, completely. Like as in, like they ramp up to his character in such a way that if you didn't have someone like Michael Keaton being in that role, the whole
It
kind
needed
of
it, yeah.
like, yeah, like he, because the second that they walk into the room and he's sitting there, it's very important that he fills the room as much as possible
Yeah.
because his character. So he plays Ramsey Clark, who is
Yeah,
the
the previous attorney general,
yeah
basically. So the one that would have been prosecuting these people if there was a case to prosecute them, if you know
yeah
what I
like
mean.
yeah like I yeah. So he's the kind of the previous attorney general. They were arrested during the time of his Justice Department being in power. Sorry, he yeah
Yep.
they were arrested. No, they weren't. Yeah, they were
Yeah,
arrested, but
yeah.
and then the change
Well,
happened,
no,
and
they
then the
weren't
new
sorry, they weren't arrested. The Well, they were arrested, but they weren't charged.
yeah
As in,
that's
it had all gone down on his watch, and
yeah
it was up to him and others and the departments of the time to decide whether or not there was any case to be brought against him. They all decided no, and it wasn't until. And actually, we should probably call out that one of the other things is the basis for all of this happening. Part of it is an insult that the Nixon's attorney general felt slighted by the Michael Keaton played Attorney General for only resigning an hour before the changeover of power, and that playing this off as and I think it's a genius bit of storytelling that a lot of this is based on an insult is such a lovely nod to how this is about feelings rather than facts.
yeah
That this is about establishment holding on to what they feel are proper traditions. I think it was probably played up versus what real history is. I don't know, but I think it was clever writing. And if it really did happen, then my God, oof.
yeah. Well, like it would probably you could definitely look it up, kind of thing. It's not one of those as in the insult was the fact that you're meant to stand down. Whereas I don't think his character waits till the last minute to kind of actually step down with just a slice on the incoming kind of attorney general. But the important thing about that character is that he is the lawyer of America kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
that's the whole like like Michael Keaton's character is the fact that he's the lawyer of America, and to get that position, you should be a very intelligent, very charismatic person, but also very, very driven. And their kind of build up of his character to have it be Michael Keaton is important because, as I said, he fills the room completely. And then
yeah.
when he's brought into the court case and stuff like that, he fills it completely. Like so much so that even the judge is
Shows deference
is
to him. Yeah,
yeah. So like it's one of those things, and it's not his position. It's partly his position, but it's also the person he is. And like so, like every scene that Michael Keaton's in, it's very important that it's Michael Keaton because he has that kind of relaxed intensity to him, as in
yeah. We've talked about that, and the reason I love Michael Keaton so much is he's the only comedian with enough evil in his face, so he can be smiling and laughing at you, yet there's that hard edged. He could go crazy any minute. It's why he made such a great Batman, and it's why I'm forever referencing the "You want to go nuts? Let's get
yeah
nuts." It embodies Michael Keaton all over the place, and his scenes or his couple of scenes in this movie are some of the more enjoyable scenes in context of a movie that I've watched in decades. Like it was real. Oh, this is going to be good. And when the turn happens that you kind of felt might be coming, it's fantastic. You're like, yeah, Michael Keaton's here, and he's playing a like you say. It had to be cast well enough because it's that important a character, and it really was.
yeah. Like that's the important thing is that his character is going on. I'm just checking the time,
Yeah,
which
I think
is
we're we're,
just
we're going kind of far. So can I call out just I'm gonna scan my notes for the two most important things left. I'm gonna pick two. I've got it down here that the symmetry I enjoyed. So take like the insult of the insult being the reason that this happened at all, and then Michael Keaton, the insultee or insulter, being such an integral part later on in the movie. There's lots of symmetry, distanced through the film, but I think one of the most subtle and brilliant ones was the mention of the guy when you see the opening court scene and they're describing who people are. It's not long after that one of the guys is writing in a book and the other guy says, "What are you writing?" He's like, "I'm writing down the names of people who died. I'm taking a list of the dead so I don't forget what we did this for, what we're doing it for." And I think that was a metaphor for the film. I think you were supposed to hear that and go, don't forget, no matter what you see about this courtroom drama or anything else that happens, that's what was behind all this. It wasn't just about a riot. It wasn't just about racism. It wasn't just about anything. It was coming from something much bigger.
Yeah,
And then to go to the finale where the names become now, and I did check that out. That is not how the court case ended. He did not read out 4,000 names or 4,500 names or whatever it was. It still was the right way to end the movie. I'm sure that's going to be one of those things that people will be like, "Oh, I didn't like that. I thought it was a bit cheesy." I think it was earned, it was deserved, and it was the right way to conclude.
yeah. No, I definitely agree. As in, just to clarify, the character is writing down the names of the people who died in the war during the
Yes.
start of the court case and the end. Um, not from the riots or anything, but
No, no.
yeah,
Sorry. Thank you.
it's yeah, it's an important part of kind of remembering where like the political angle is the insult and the using this as kind of a show of force against the far left who kind of thing, whereas the group the 7 and 8 um are specifically doing this for lives. That's what they're doing it for. They're
Yeah.
standing up in such a way that it's very much it's it's important to remember that. To go through some of the other characters,
Yeah.
which is just to go Jeremy Strong, Jerry Rubens, who is the counterpart to Abe Hoffman,
Yeah.
fantastic person, um, incredibly like he's the soul of the group of the like he's the soul of the Yippie group. He's very very passionate and compassionate and empathetic to everybody around him. So he's a very good heart and soul kind of person. Alex Sharp, who plays Rennie Davis, who's and Eddie Redmayne's counterpart. He's the one who's writing
Yep.
the names down. He's an important part because he seems to be Eddie Redmayne's very important partner in the kind of thing. So like he has a lesser role to play, but anytime he talks and stuff like that, especially to Eddie Redmayne's character, it's very important that
Yeah.
it's strong. God, there's so many people that I like.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you call out
Just
Jeremy Strong, as you'll see. And folks, the reason you heard some typing there is because I wanted to have Paul have a date stamped and time stamped email from me. I just mailed my notes to you, Paul,
okay.
so that you can have a good laugh afterwards when you see, because some of what you just said is in my notes as well. So we are slowly but surely becoming the same person. I do think we should probably
Except for
wrap up
pacing.
though. If you what?
Except for pacing.
Except for
That's
exactly,
it.
except for basic. Um, it's one of the few movies that we have not mentioned the music or soundtrack, and you know why? I honestly don't remember the music or soundtrack as a strong piece of this, which means it was probably quite a good score, because it just let the movie do its thing.
It was I took note on it because I thought that it would become a piece with both of us. It's so good because it's a very piece of the time, kind of
Yeah,
thing. As in, like most of the music is either taken from bands and stuff like that that was released around the
yeah,
time, or specifically designed to sound like it, which is fantastic. But it's one of those things that's like it's not really used in the courtroom at all.
yeah,
Um, simply because that's not a place where you would really have it. I think it only comes really more into the end part,
yeah. The outside
but
scenes
it's
and stuff.
but it more comes into the specific start of the taking of the hill in the park. That's an important part to the music coming in because that's more showing the period of time which is very much establishment versus these people, excuse me,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah, I took
Overall,
note of it.
Paul,
Grant.
I'm yeah, exactly. It's not even in my notes. It was one of those things. It was a complimentary soundtrack, as in it did a great job of not getting in the way, and it wasn't the thing that stood out for me. So that's hey, that that's good too for this type of movie. You don't want it being intrusive or gimmicky. But what I do want to say then, because I know we are probably wrapping up, is I don't know how many people are going to see this. I want to thank everybody who did join us. But if you are watching or have watched, if you're watching in the future, get into the comments down below because I would love to hear what everybody out there thinks, not only of this movie, but how they think it'll be viewed by the Academy and other awards. God knows what the Screen Actors Guild will do. They do whatever they want at any given time. Um, never bother guessing them. That's my only advice. Yeah, I'd really love some feedback on this movie. And I'm really, really glad to hear your thoughts. And Paul, big thank you from me before we sign off. Big thank you for not thinking the exact same thing as me the whole way,
Okay.
because it made for good stuff.
Yeah, like my closing remark, which is my closing remark is, in a year that doesn't really have a large amount of things that I could say are Oscar nominees for like Best Picture, if this was released in a time like if this was released last year or in a time where there was a lot more kind of normalcy for the Oscar kind of grouping of movies, this would still be a front runner. Like
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to comment below this that says that, oh, this is the only reason it's going to get an Oscar is because there's so little out there right now, and
Oh,
it's
it's a
just like,
soft year type of thing. No, it's
yeah,
not.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. No, even in a hard year, this would either be noted as a Golden Globe one and a possible Oscar nomination, or people will be raving about the fact that it wasn't an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
so
See it, folks. There you go. We never actually got round to saying see it. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. But whatever you do, see this movie if you haven't,
yeah,
and if you have, let us know what you thought of it.
yeah. Netflix, go watch it. Fantastic. You know, but
Cool.
yeah. All right.
And then on that note, I guess we will see you next time with more fun content. Go check out our other videos. God knows what next week's going to be because we got to talk ball. We'll see what next week's going to be. And
comment comment down below if you have any suggestions, or get our social medias to suggest any kind of talking points. The social media stuff is underneath Patrick right now, which gets, so yeah,
that's
get in contact.
good idea, actually. Yeah, you let us know what you'd like to see. And we've been Hear Us Out. I've been Patrick.
And I've been Paul.
And I'm
Sorry.
not meant to say we've been Hear Us Out first, but I did. So see you later.
Oh, bold. See you later, guys. All right. All right.